Hi guys, welcome to the channel, a brand new channel following my photography journey from beginner to hopefully knowing something about photography. And yeah, I'm going to start this journey. I've been wanting to get into photography for quite a while now, and I finally took the plunge. I bought myself my first camera, which we're going to be covering in today's video, which is the Canon 250D. I just want to talk about why I think it's one of the best beginner cameras out there. There'll be plenty of reviews out there from obviously professional photographers, but talking from a beginner like myself, I want to talk about why I picked it up after all the research that I've done. And yet, if you want to follow my photography journey from, as I say, from an absolute novice to hopefully somewhere down the line knowing quite a bit about photography, we're going to be having product reviews. So every product that I pick up, I'm going to keep them honest, I'm going to keep them very unbiased, and I'm just going to obviously say what I found the best that I picked up. So I've got, at the moment, I've bought the base camera with the base lens, I've got an extra lens that I've just invested in, and I've got a few straps and stuff, so plenty of reviews coming, and we're just going to go on this journey together. So if you do like the idea of that, learning with somebody just as new as you, hit the subscribe button, like this video if it does help you out. And yeah, we're going to talk about the 250D today, just a few features that I've had the camera for probably about 6 months now, and there's a lot of cool features. There's very little that I can say is bad about it, especially for a beginner. I understand there's going to be a lot of photographers out there who've got really expensive gear, and that's one reason why I love this camera, especially for my first to get into it, into photography. So yeah, we're going to go through a few questions that you may have about this particular camera. As I say, if you do like it, please hit that like button for me, subscribe to follow me on this journey. Let's get into it. So firstly, price point for the Canon 250D. At the obviously moment of recording this video, I think it's about £630 on Argos. I think I paid £600, so it must have gone up a little tiny bit. But yeah, it's a great price point for such a great bit of kit. And you're gonna be wondering what you get in the box.
What's in the box?
And you're obviously going to get the camera and the kit lens that comes with it. The kit lens is an 18 to 55mm lens, and of course you get the battery and the battery charger. And you know what, you basically need enough ready to go as soon as you get this out the box, apart from one thing, and that is, if I can get the back of this open, and all you need to do is invest in a SD card. As you can see, it was just in focus then, was 170 megabyte speed and 128 gig size. The Extreme Pro, I think it was on Amazon for about £30, somewhere in that region. So you're going to get thousands and thousands of pictures with that. You're going to get quite a few hours if you were to record video with it. So I obviously recommend picking up one that size. If I was you, I'll try and leave a link to the products obviously I mentioned in this video. But yeah, once you've got your memory card, you're ready to go. Now that's the price point covered. One of the next questions I had is the kit lens that you get with the camera good enough to get some crystal clear pictures? And the answer is yes. A lot of obviously these photographers spend quite thousands of pounds on lenses, and obviously there's a reason why. There's a lot of settings. Once you start getting into your photography journey, you're going to be talking about obviously your actual camera settings, so your ISO, your aperture, your shutter speed, and things like that. Obviously these most expensive lenses get more obviously room for improvements when it comes to obviously getting that perfect shot. But as a beginner, if you're just going to go around in the street, taking pictures, portraits, taking pictures of buildings, going on holiday, getting pictures of like tourist attractions, this lens is going to do you well and serve you a great purpose. Obviously you've got the the functionality of being able to go from 18mm to 55, so I've got that little bit of leeway in the sense of zoom. But yeah, there's a lot of settings on the camera that will help you out if you are new to photography, and we're going to talk about them now. But yeah, you can get great shots with this lens. I've bought a prime lens extra since I bought the camera, which is fixed at 50mm, which you can see here. I'm going to do a review obviously in the future on this, but this is basically the it's the workhorse. It's the one that people get next, they invest in next, and yeah, we'll talk more about that. But this lens gives me pictures that lens does, in all fairness, but there's better aperture settings with that 50mm, which is obviously just something that lens can't do. But basic pictures, getting used to it, I've got crystal clear pictures and great photos with that lens. So straight out the bag, yes, the lens is good enough for you. So next I want to talk about a few of the function settings on this camera. So before I mentioned you can just pick this camera up out the box and start going shooting great pictures, and you can because it's got a scene select function on this camera, which is brilliant. I used it for the first month or two before I started learning more about manual photography, and as you can see, you can click portrait, which is obviously, you know, backgrounds are blurred, subject stands out, so that's basically a high aperture setting, which is obviously going to blur out the background for you. Next, you've got these smooth skin tones in your image, just bringing the best out of obviously the subject. Next, you've got group photos, so rather than focusing on one particular small subject, so if you were shooting, like, I don't know, for instance, a child on a swing, you want the camera to focus on the swing and kind of obviously, you know, blur out the background to a certain extent to make you focus on that. So obviously with group photos, that makes that focused area a lot wider, so everyone looks nice and crystal clear on the picture. Next, you've got landscape. Again, that's for obviously a wider depth of field. As you can see, you know, it's including the foreground and the background in focus, so it's very much about collecting as much detail in the picture for obviously shooting those landscape scenes. Next, you've got sport. As you can imagine, this is a moving subject, so it's about keeping the shutter speed nice and high so you're not getting blurred subjects moving at pace. Next, kids, shooting kids in motion, continuous shooting. Again, it's a bit similar to obviously the sports one. Also, we've got close up with smaller subjects such as flowers, shooting close to subject as possible, so obviously, you know, when you go too close to a lot of image, if you've got the wrong camera settings, it's going to look blurred. This scene helps with that. Next is food. As you can see, it says it makes food look fresh and vibrant. Next is the candlelight setting, so obviously this gives preference to obviously ambient in lower light settings. Night portrait, similar to the candlelight setting, but this is for obviously shooting subjects in night scenes. Flash is required for this one. Next, it's got handheld night scene, takes 4 consecutive shots using flash when shooting subjects in the night scene, so it's basically taking 4 pictures to get the best out of it. And finally, HDR backlight control, retains more detail in bright or dark areas of contrast scenes, takes 3 consecutive shots. So you've got those scene select options, so you can pick the one that best applies to obviously the picture you're taking. So if you're out taking a picture of a building, you're gonna benefit from landscapes. If you're taking a picture of obviously a family member, you're going to be better obviously with the portrait scene. And if you're taking a picture of obviously maybe one of your kids playing football or on their bike, you're going to be better with either the kids or the sports scene select. So straight away, you're going to get crystal clear photos. You don't really have to have a great understanding of obviously manual photography, but eventually you will want to move into manual photography because obviously, you know, it's always good to learn. If you want to be able to pick up any camera and in the future, or you want to invest in another camera, if if this photography journey takes you onto another level where you want to invest in better equipment, then getting a good understanding of manual photography is obviously the best way to go. But obviously straight out the box, you're going to be getting crystal clear pictures for a great price point. Also, what I will say about the manual photography side of this, it is great once you get into the camera. It's pretty easy to use. You know, you can use the touchscreen to control your aperture and your shutter settings, but I'll be honest, the best way I have found is using the actual, rather than having to, go into touching all the screens, is using a few of the buttons. You can use the little scroller on the top, so next to obviously the button you press to take the picture, moving this left and right will change your shutter speed manually, and also if you keep your finger on the AV button at the very back of it and use the exact same little thing, you can move your aperture. I like to keep the ISO on auto at the moment, so obviously once I've got the right aperture for the picture I want to take and the right shutter speed, when you half click the button, your ISO is going to automatically pick the best one for you. So again, manual photography with this is a lot easier than a lot of obviously photographers manually do their ISO. But there's also a lot of professional photographers that I listen to and watch that swear by keeping the ISO on auto because the camera itself pick the best one for you. But yeah, when you do, the reason I'm mentioning this, because when you do get into manual photography, if you choose to, it is pretty straightforward to use with this camera, whether you want to use touchscreen or use the buttons like I've just suggested. Next, I'm going to talk about the video quality on this camera. I'm sure if you've obviously researched the cameras, you know that it does record in 4K, it does record in 1080p, it does record 60 frames, 30 frames, 24, whatever you want to do. So from that point, this camera is amazing, but what I will say is the kit lens is a bit too close for comfort, in the sense of when you're holding it in, obviously, the vlogging position, your face is right, it's full, it's not a wide angle lens, put it that way. You would have to invest in a wide angle lens to be able to use this as obviously front-facing vlogging camera. But within saying that, the camera quality is brilliant again. You know, if you're just looking to make YouTube videos, obviously this is great for that, because obviously a lot of people only watch 1080p on YouTube. You know, a lot of devices, your phones, your tablets, your iPads, your PCs, unless you've got the top end spec gear, you know, a lot of people watch it in 1080p, but it does also give you the ability to obviously record it in 4K if you want to. Now, the camera does have a built-in flash, as you can see there. In all honesty, I never use flash. I don't think there's any photography that I'm going to be taking with this camera that I'm going to need a flash. In nighttime shooting, obviously there's going to be lit up areas. The camera's capabilities, if you're just wanting to use those scene selects, great. If you know how to use manual photography, brilliant. You know, I'm very rarely going to use that, but it does come with it nevertheless. Next, I want to talk about the LCD monitor on this camera, because it's a pretty cool one. Not every camera comes with a fully articulated screen, so if you're the keen vlogger, you can turn the camera and see yourself while shooting, so you can make sure that you're in shot. And also, if you just want to give that obviously extra visibility when shooting other subjects, it's going to give you the option to obviously tilt the screen, get down nice and low, and you're going to be able to see quite clearly what you're shooting. It just gives you a lot more control to get that nice straight shooting with it. And this was a massive selling point for me, I must admit, because obviously my initial purchase of this was to do vlogging, but you know, even in street photography, if you want to get nice and low to the ground, you obviously can't look through a viewfinder, and obviously on other cameras you don't have this fully articulating screen, so you still have to get down low, but you can simply turn it up and being able to shoot that perfect picture without much hassle at all. And finally, I want to talk about a few limitations with this, because there are a few, but if you're just starting out, you're not going to really notice them. But just to give you an idea, you know, in the future, if this photography journey takes you onto, you know, a real love for photography, and you want to invest more money into it, you know, in the long run, you are probably going to either sell this and get yourself a better bit of kit, or just keep this as a vlogging camera and invest in another camera for photography. If, like me, you want to start a YouTube channel, for instance, you know, eventually, if this goes well, I will be upgrading my gear. I probably maybe invest in 1 or 2 more lenses, and I eventually will move on to obviously a better camera. So for instance, obviously the lens you get with it, you know, it can't get the high quality pictures from obviously a distance point of view. So if you wanted to take a picture, I don't know, of I know you're going down the local harbour to take a few pictures of obviously boats coming in, for instance, airplanes coming in. You can take pictures of airplanes coming in a few of the viewing areas, especially in the Manchester one. You know, it's very limited. You're gonna have to spend money on a bigger lens, which, you know, that's the whole point. Photography is an expensive hobby, but there are the limitations with the lens for this. And as I say, this is only a kit lens, so there are a lot of other better lenses out there. So for instance, the lowest aperture I can get with this camera is 3.5, and that is only when I am zoomed all the way out. So a 3.5 I can get when I'm obviously shooting something close, but if I zoom in a little bit, it goes to 5.6. So the aperture side of things, it's not great. So if you're wanting to get those nice bokeh pictures we were talking about before, where you're taking a picture of a subject and the background's nice and blurry, you're not going to get those great pictures with this camera. You're going to find them with better lenses, which you can get, which we'll talk about, the one I mentioned before in another video. So there are limitations with this lens, and of course, you know, the body itself does have limitations. What I will say is, though, I haven't actually come across any limitations with it, in the sense that have held me back as a photographer. I've obviously bought another lens, works perfectly with it. You can get more expensive lenses and put it on this camera and it'll work perfectly fine. But obviously, if you're spending £1,000 or maybe even more on a lens, and you've got a £500 body, you know, there are going to be a few limitations. There may be a few issues there. So eventually, if you're wanting to make money from this, you will want to upgrade this camera as a whole. But if it's just for a bit of fun, you cannot go wrong with the 250D. I still love it. I plan on using it for years to come, until I can afford something a lot better. I won't upgrade for something that's just a bit better. There's not much with that I need more from a camera that's going to cost me, like, you know, maybe even double this price. It'd have to be a lot more for me to invest in it. But yeah, that is it for today's video. I must admit, I'm really enjoying this camera. If you've already bought this camera and you're enjoying it as well, you were just looking up for some tips and obviously what other people's thoughts on it, let me know down in the comments what you feel about this camera. Let me know if you've noticed any critiques, any limitations with it that I may not have mentioned, or even maybe let me know what you love about this camera that I haven't mentioned in this video. And yeah, we've got a few videos I've got planned, obviously, about the new lens. There's a few straps that I want to talk about. I've done a lot of research on all of them, so they're going to be coming soon. But yeah, that is it for today's video, and if you did make it to the end, it must have helped you out, so please hit that like button, subscribe for more videos, and until next time, take care.